Good morning. So, as she said, we're going to talk about the practical landscape lessons that we've learnt in West Africa. I'm Andrew Collins, and this is Stephanie, the Environment and Social Governance Director. As you can see from this slide, we're located in West Africa, in Ghana and Sierra Leone. We're a business that is a sustainable plantation forestry business. We're FSC certified. We've developed since 2010 to over 10,000 hectares established, 4,000 hectares of conservation land, 1,500 employees, and we're focused on the production of sustainable timber. So we produce sawn timber, transmission poles, and energy biomass, so charcoal and biomass for the production of electricity. Looking forward, we move a little bit more into the production of plywood. But that's in the next 4 to 5 years. Fortunately for us, forestry is naturally a triple bottom line business. It's a business that delivers an environmental return. Plantation forestry in the tropics typically sequesters about 20 tons of atmospheric carbon per hectare per annum. And we obviously promote the protection of conservation areas. In addition, it's a business that provides a lot of social benefit in terms of jobs, liquidity in rural areas. And with the growing population in the world, growing GDP growth, there's huge demand for wood, so it can be a profitable business as well if managed correctly. And as a result of those factors, it lends itself very much to a landscape approach. And that's what we try to promote and encourage in the areas that we operate. And Stephanie's just going to introduce some of those challenges.
Good morning. Being the forerunners in any industry or in any place is going to pose challenges. Being forerunners in a developing country, often with a history of conflict or natural disaster or epidemics, is going to pose even more challenges. We hate to dwell on the negatives, but being the forerunners, we came across a lot of challenges that we hadn't envisaged. And a lot of the challenges we did envisage weren't actually that large a challenge. So by sharing our challenges in political, legal, environmental, and social, we hope we can help other companies and other organizations overcome these challenges and speed up some of the successes we have. For the rest of this short talk, I will cover some social, environmental, and Andrew will go through some political and legal challenges. And it's not all negative, because I have a very positive case study that I'll run through briefly before we finish. I'll hand you back to Andrew.
So one of the important things for any business is the initial framework documentation that you set up. For a land-based business such as ours, the land lease is critically important to get right, such that it can deliver a win-win-win to the community, the environment, and the government at large, and obviously the business. We found that in order to do that, it's very important to get that documentation right and simple at an early stage so that people do have aligned interests, such that the community where you operate can have improved livelihoods and spin-off benefit, that the landscape at large can benefit from the protection of conservation lands and so on, and that bringing the government into the same boat as you, as the company, trying to develop a sustainable system of working with them such that your methodology can improve their systems and that you can learn from the government's systems to develop a better and wider landscape approach as a whole for future companies that follow.
Some of the largest social challenges that we've had have been to do with there being no formal employment within the sector. So a lot of the communities, a lot of the stakeholders don't trust a company. They haven't seen many companies before, let alone responsible companies, so trust is limited. Working in a rural area, also food, there's a lot of food insecurity. The history of agriculture has been slash and burn, it's been subsistence. So there's food insecurity is high. The other issue that we have is that there is no gender equality. Often in these rural areas, women don't have a voice, women are not heard. So as a company, we need to work with the communities to ensure that women and men have an equal voice. We've managed to overcome a lot of these challenges, but there's a long way to go. We've overcome these through good systems, lots of stakeholder engagement, lots of communication, but we are looking to work with other people in order to try and make some of these areas easier. Within the environmental sector, the biggest challenge comes from the fact that 80% of West Africa has been deforested in the last 100 years. That is vast, and these are very, very fragile ecosystems with little resilience. And very little is being done. There's very little integration, and there's very little conservation dialogue in some of these areas.
So before Stephanie goes on to talk about a case study, what we've learned is that there's no right or wrong ways of doing things. The landscape around businesses and the businesses themselves as they grow are constantly evolving. So it's very important to look both internally at your own systems, but also externally at how other companies in sectors similar to yours do the business and follow the landscape approach to try and constantly evolve as your business and the landscape changes. Stephanie's going to talk a little bit now, briefly, about a case study that we've followed.
Thanks, Andrew. If you could go to the next slide. So in one of the areas where we operate, if you look at the photographs on the screen, it's a very delicate ecosystem. It's lots of wetlands. It is very degraded from a history of slash and burn, lots of wildfires, and subsistence agriculture. And with this growing population, the pressure on the environment is just increasing. We were working in this area, and it became very visible that nothing was being done, or very little was being done, to try and curb this, to try and stop this, to try and conserve the remaining areas of intact forest. So we thought, well, what can we do? What can we do as a responsible company to change this, to make this a landscape that works for everybody? So we started working very closely with communities. We did resource mapping with communities. We looked at the resources coming from the remaining forests and from the degraded landscape. We involved lots of stakeholders. It was the first time that these communities had heard about conservation. We talked about conservation locally, conservation internationally. It's been successful. We have large areas of conservation area now. Water sources are improving. Species spotting has increased. This may be to do with our awareness in terms of species, but it's a start. Communities are talking about conservation. They're setting up committees to help, so they can help improve conservation. So it's been very, very positive. Why has this worked? Well, because we have the teams, we have the tools, and we have the perseverance. But it's taken a long time. And if there had been an integrated international dialogue helping this part of the world, it would have been a much faster process.
So to conclude, it's often complex. There's many complex issues around trying to develop the right approach, but it is possible to develop a landscape system that does work for the clear majority, and that's what we believe that we've begun to learn in developing our business, and hopefully over the next few days we can share some ideas and learn some ideas between ourselves. Stephanie's now going to play a very short clip by one of the employees.
So one of the...
Oh, sorry.
One of the reasons that this really made me smile, and I think that our system is working. One of our employees, who is on the manual weed control team, called Peter Karoma, has written a song about the company, which has made national airwaves, but it's a brilliant song. However, the take-home lesson, 3 take-home lessons from the song are, number 1, protect the forests, number 2, protect the wildlife, and number 3, beware of fire in the landscape. Now, he's on the weed control team, but these are his take-home lessons, and this is what he is singing about. So to me, this means that we have done our little piece. Thank you for listening.